let me just listen.
There you go.
We're wasting a little bit of time here to allow all of our Morgan fans to join us here on Facebook. Perhaps you're joining live on YouTube. Maybe you're catching up later on YouTube. Maybe you're just listening to the podcast. We come every Thursday evening around this time to bring you the flagship sports podcast here on the Morgan Podcasting Network. We call it Balls and Brew. I'll serve as your host. My name is Rod Morgan, serving as the executive producer and one of my co-hosts. He will also host a wrestling show, which will be coming up a little bit later on this very live stream. If you're a big fan of the professional wrestling arts like we are, he's my man, Jimmy Jamreska. Jimmy, hello.
I am here. I am ready. As long as we don't have to talk about any of our favorite football teams today, I'm good to go.
Yes, we'll definitely have to talk about our favorite football teams. But you know what we're not talking about on this particular podcast, Jimmy? Something that happened on Tuesday. You've heard enough about that. Nothing happening here on this podcast. We're having fun. We're talking football. That is what we're doing. And to get our football knowledge, we turn to one particular place, and it's just a few streets over from Morgan headquarters here in Mishawaka, over in South Bend. He's our guy. We used to refer to him as the anonymous gambler because at one time we didn't want people placing bets. Now bets are everywhere. You can't see any commercial without somebody telling you how to place a legal wager. He's our handicapper. He's Josh Williams. Josh, hello.
What's up, boys? We're not going to talk about Tuesday, the NFL trade deadline.
I know,
that's all.
I had notes, but that's okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
I knew.
Well, listen, I forgot that happened on Tuesday. I was speaking of something else. I was just telling folks we're not going to have on this podcast. But if you need to bring up something from the trade deadline, yes, you're good there.
No, I'd rather talk about. Okay, so Jimmy's team on the Wins League last week won 6 games. That motivated my team for this week to win 6 games. So thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Yes.
Rod and I are coming to get you. Rod and I are coming, buddy.
Jimmy, update the score for the people.
So Chris King is an abysmal 26 wins. You know, Chris King.
Speaking of Chris King, he's maybe going to join us. I'm sorry, Jimmy. That's a good spot to jump in there real quick. Speaking of Chris, he may join us here later, but he's not with us right now. Continue.
So he is so bad, Rod, that his second to last pick has the most wins of his entire. It's the Steelers. They have 6 wins. The Saints, his last pick, if you'll remember, were 2-0 at one point and scored like 700 points in those games. Not looking good. Bengals and Rams has 4 wins.
You never want your team to fire their head coach, right? When you're looking for wins in a wins league, you never want the team to fire the head coach. So that hurts Chris.
Funny you mentioned that because he also has the Jets. So that's 2. He has the Panthers, who will fire their head coach because they do every year. Jaguars, maybe.
Middle seat Doug. Things not looking good for him.
The Cowboys should have fired their coach a while ago. So 26 wins for Chris. And then we are tied, Rod. Second, third place. We're tied for second here with 35 wins. Very respectable for someone who knows nothing. And, by the way, who picked the Cleveland Browns with the 4th overall pick in the draft. Thank you very much.
The Jameis Winston-led Cleveland Browns. We may or may not get to the Browns.
Is he still? I don't know if he is still. Is he leading them?
Or are we going to go back to DTR?
See, I am so good, though, Rod, that with my final pick in the draft, I picked the 7-win Commanders. Thank you. So I knew where they were going to go. I let you pick all the other teams. And I picked the Commanders with 7 wins. I think Williams' Vikings pick with the last pick is still pretty good. Williams had 42 wins on the season so far. Nice little 7-game cushion for Williams here.
Go ahead. He is the expert here. He is the expert. I like that 2 of the later picks in the wins draft, Pittsburgh and Washington, are one of our picks this week. I see that's on the docket. We're going to get into those teams. I'm excited about that. We're going to get into one of Williams's old flames. I don't believe he has talked about his once and true love very much this year, so I'll be interested to hear what we have in that game. So that'll be fun. And then we have my team, which that's where we're going to start. Jimmy, we're going to start the podcast off with a bang. Fire up that music, my friend. We are getting into Rod Damnation early. Let's go. Now, I'm going to tread lightly as I begin Rod Damnation here because I am still pulling for the Indianapolis Colts. I still believe in Shane Steichen. I still absolutely believe in Anthony Richardson, which will become clear by the end of this particular little soliloquy here. I even maybe still sort of believe in Chris Ballard. So that basically leaves one name in Indianapolis as this Rod Damnation could be for, and it's the person that I blame for the entire fiasco that occurred last week for the Indianapolis Colts. Irsay, once again, my man, congratulations. Congratulations. You stepped in, tried to decide something for the football team, and it just went absolutely magically, didn't it? What happened? It progressively got worse every day in the football spin cycle. Podcast world, Stephen A. Smith, Dan Orlovsky, Shannon Sharp, all of them are lining up to take their shots at your 21-year-old quarterback. Dragged him through the mud. You barely even showed signs of supporting him, all because we were told Joe Flacco was the answer. He was the savior. The old man from the mountain was going to come down and he was going to lead this talented Colts team to the playoffs. Man, how'd that turn out for you? This offense looked just as bad as the offense that you said couldn't be tolerated. So Anthony Richardson had to sit down. Now you're left with the bungling situation and a do or die game. What in the world were we doing, Colts? If you were going to sit Anthony Richardson down, be clearer about it and show more support to him than you did, but don't do what you did to him. Leave him twisting in the wind to get killed day after day, and then only have Joe Flacco produce that turd. Goodness gracious, Mr. Irsay, can you please stay out of football operations? Jimmy, did I toe the line between picking out one particular aspect of the Colts but not going negative on my team? Did I toe that line?
I loved how you started off with your classic rock voice. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the Colts today. And then you kind of revved up a little bit, but then you stopped yourself. And I appreciate that. You did toe the line there. I think, again, Rod, you couldn't have started Richardson last week. You couldn't have. I'm sorry. He tapped out. You needed to take him out. But the Flacco-ness of everything, you had to temper those expectations, especially Williams against that Vikings defense. Vikings defense is fantastic.
Williams can retort here in just a second. Let me answer your direct retort there, okay? Fine. He can't start that game because he tapped out for a play. Okay. But here's what you do. You get a hold of that situation, keep it in-house, and you say that he's being suspended for one game, one half, something for a violation of a team rule, right? You say something like that. You don't let the whole story get out and become the narrative and let people run wild with it. Maybe that's fine. I still disagree with you, Jim, but I say there's a way that they could have even handled that situation better if that ultimately is the compromise you and I would have to reach.
Well, remember, he's the one who let the story out. No one else did. He said, I was tired. I'm not going to lie. So you got to learn.
Well, listen, somebody knew that he had done that before he went into that room, okay? So somebody could have easily said to him, hey, Anthony, no matter what you do, don't answer that question, right? So somebody could have been smart enough to be ahead of that. That's how these things work in 2024.
Tweaked my knee a little bit, had to go out real quick just to make sure it was okay. Another story.
Support the kid, Jimmy. So it goes back to support the kid, and the Colts showed him barely any, and I think that's a complete failure.
Williams. Would it have mattered who started against the Vikings?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm with you guys. I Colts fans, just be careful what you wish for. And Rod, I'm not pointing out Rod here. Rod's on my side. So, yeah, I don't really have much to add about the Colts. I will say,
dynamite drop.
Yeah. I love he doesn't have anything to add on the Colts, and they're one of his picks. That might be leading which way he's going to go in that game.
Well, I'm not going to say anything because this could be.
No, let's just go. Listen, we're on the Colts right now. Let's go. Give us that game. Let's go. Handicap it.
This could be good theater here. Yeah. So,
Colts Bills. Here we go. I set you up better than that. I'm sorry. Colts Bills. Williams, what do you got for us?
Yeah, this may be surprising to you guys. I'm going to take the Colts +4, -110 on MGM and Caesars. So the Bills don't blitz like the Brian Flores Vikings defense. And Flacco is much worse versus the blitz. We talked about that last week when I broke it down. That was a big reason why I liked Minnesota -3 in the first half last week. By the way, I went 2-1 against the spread last week. That was the one game I lost. And I lost because the Colts had a fumble 6. Darnold threw a pick in the end zone, and we missed a field goal. So
Lost
Hey,
because the
yeah.
Colts were terrible. The Colts were terrible in that game last week. Terrible. They were just terrible. I'm sorry. I have to admit that. As a Colt
Yeah, but it was the
fan,
first.
they
Well,
were
you lost it
terrible.
because you lost it because you wimped out and did first half. That's
I
why.
did.
That's
I did.
That's why you
Yep.
lost it.
Yep. You guys
If
always
only
scorn me
someone
for
would scorn you every time
Yeah,
that you make one of those
first
half
half.
picks.
I did win the other first half though, Ravens. So
All right, fine. Continue.
okay. The newly the newly acquired Amari Cooper isn't 100%. I think the Bills are going to try to run more here. Now, what I will say, the Colts now have a healthy Grover Stewart on the defensive line, and when you add him to DeForest Buckner, it makes it really tough to run against those tackles. That's what I really took away from that first half was how good that Colts defense was. I mean, when they're fully healthy, you got Zaire Franklin back there making all kinds of tackles, Kenny Moore. So also,
we were giving it to Gus at the beginning of the year. I mean, we were giving it to him. I was ready to run him out of town. So, I mean, we should point that out. I love that you bring that up, Williams.
yeah. So also, you want to play more zone versus Josh Allen. He tears man coverage up with his legs. That's when we saw the Bills smack around the Jags earlier in the year. We know the Colts play a ton of zone. Not only that, they play a ton of cover 3, which just so happens to be the defense that has given Josh Allen the most problems. If you don't believe me, listen to this. Every single touchdown Josh Allen has thrown this year has been against man. 0 versus zone. When you have a road dog here that has a winning percentage of over 75% on the year, that's the Bills. Those teams are only 121 and 158 against the spread over the last decade. That's only 43%. Why is that? Joe Public and the market tend to overvalue these teams. This is what the industry likes to call a sandwich spot for the Bills. Off an emotional last-second home win over your arch rival, a division rival Dolphins. And how do they win that game? The kicker nails a franchise record 61-yard field goal in November in Buffalo to win that game. You've got the kicker like tearing up when the coaches gave him the game ball in the post-game in the locker room with all his teammates around him. And then look who's on deck for the Bills. The big, bad, undefeated Kansas City Chiefs rolling to Buffalo next week. You don't think those guys are looking ahead of the ho-hum Colts here? You don't think that team is sick and tired?
Look-ahead game. How
Yes.
did I not see it coming? The classic look-ahead game.
You don't think this team is sick and tired of hearing how great the Chiefs are every single week? And we know how those Bills and Chiefs games are. They're fantastic. Bills are inflated here. They haven't beat anybody with a winning record. I don't think many people realize that. Give me the Colts
Wait a
plus
minute,
4.
Wait a minute. I believe the Colts don't have a winning record, so I'm not sure how that
one. But for all those reasons, I think the Colts can run on this Buffalo Bills team. I think the Colts are going to use one of their 16 tight ends to throw to throw in the middle of the field. That's how you beat the Bills. You attack the middle intermediate levels of the field. You don't throw on the perimeter. They have some good secondary pieces. But yeah, this is the reason why I broke down. I took the Colts plus 4.5 earlier in the week. It has gone down to 4. I still think there's value there. It's gone down to 3.5 on another book. So the sharp money, believe it or not, Rod, is on the Colts here. I'm backing the Colts plus 4.
Listen, I'm mad at myself. Okay. I should have seen the classic look ahead game coming. All right. I also know that you are like a vulture with the Colts. You only come sniffing around when there's like bad stuff happening in Indianapolis, right? You never you always tell us to calm down when the Colts are riding high and playing well. You want nothing to do with them. And then when they look terrible, all of a sudden you swoop in and you're putting your money down at the window. This is what you do with the Colts all the time. So I should have seen that one coming. Tight ends, I like it. You're right. The Colts have 16. I have to apologize to our guy, Dak Storm. He loves him some Kyle Granson. I do not. Perhaps we should just have Kyle only do blocking things out there. Doesn't seem to want to catch the football all that very often. And Jimmy Jam, once upon a time, you were our Jonathan Taylor correspondent. Is he back or is he still injured? I'm not entirely sure if I remember much out of JT last week. Where are we at with Jonathan Taylor?
That was his ramp-up game, so he needs to now go the next step. And again, Minnesota Vikings defense, let's make sure we realize that was a big thing, and no one was really going to do much against him. So I think this is when Taylor does step up. Expect a score out of Taylor this week.
All right, listen, I love it, man. This is a borrow a phrase from my guy Baron Corbin. Shout out to our guy Baron Corbin. We're going to get to him in the wrestling show, but burn the ships. All right, that was one of his things for a while here. This is what the Colts have to do this week. This is a burn the ships game. Williams likes them. They got a chance. The Bears are in a burn the ships game. We may or may not get to the Bears yet here. Jimmy doesn't want me to get to the Bears, but we'll see how the show goes, and maybe I'll get to the Bears. But Where we are going to get to right now is perhaps. No, we're going to save what I think might be the game of the week. Let's go. Let's go back to an old flame. Kyle Shanahan, my guy. We haven't heard from you this year. Williams hasn't been talking you up. He's been doing little Bobby Slowick. I'm not even entirely sure how you pronounce that guy's name.
Slowick.
He likes some Ben Johnson up there in Detroit, right? He's even been giving us some Liam Cohen, right? Liam Cohen is his new guy, the bass player from Oasis. He is not. He is the play caller for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I knew that. I was right. I knew what team that guy played for, coached for. Anyway, San Francisco, this might be the first time Williams has picked them this year. They're going up against my guy, Baker, who continues to play excellent quarterback. He doesn't have the big wide receivers. He's not throwing the ball as far down the field, but man, Baker's still making plays happen. I love watching Tampa Bay play football. You love watching San Francisco. Williams, what do we got?
Finally, I've been circling this game all year. I'm going to take the 49ers -6. It's -110, widely available. Bucks are off a short week here, off an OT loss on the road on Monday Night Football. Teams coming off overtime on just 6 days of rest off Monday Night Football are just 15-23 against the spread over the last decade. That's 39%. We get San Fran and Shanahan off a bye here. So finally, the Niners have a net rest advantage spot over another team. The only one they'll have all year. They have 8 games where their opponent has the net rest advantage on them. That's why you haven't heard me talk about the Niners here. So, I've had this game circled for a while to talk about the best play caller in the league, Kyle Shanahan. Now he gets 2 weeks to prepare for this Bucs team, who is coming off a devastating road OT loss. They look like they put a ton of effort into that game, and that game plan only to come up short. Got to wonder how big of an emotional toll that will take on them and on the team. And that's even before we get into the X's and O's. We know the Bucs will be without their top 3 wideouts in Evans, Godwin, and McMillan. That's okay. They can go to Otten. He just tore up the Chiefs, right? I would say not so fast. The Chiefs are bottom 3 in the league at defending tight ends. That's why Otten had such a good game. What does San Francisco excel at? Defending tight ends, because they have Fred Warner, the best linebacker in the league, and they have Jaquiski Tart, one of the best safeties in the league. Where's Tampa going to go here for yards and, more importantly, for points? Because you're going to have to keep up with this Niners offense that should have a healthy Debo, Kittle, Jordan Mason, and potentially, yes, Christian McCaffrey in this game. I just think there's too much rest here for the Niners. I love the Niners here, -6 at Tampa here.
Did you say that one guy's last name was Tart? Like Jamie Tart and Ted Lasso? Is the guy English? They get him from the Premier League? Like, what's happening with that guy?
He's a good safety. Yes, Tart.
Right.
With two T's.
With 2 T's. Oh, well, that makes all the difference then. Clearly he's not related to the guy from Ted Lasso who's a made-up secondary character. I'm such a fool. Listen, I haven't watched much of San Francisco this year. I got to admit, it kind of seems like things have been a little slow-footed there, but you could tell me that all has to do with the fact that Christian McCaffrey hasn't been playing. Hearing a lot of word that he's coming back. I don't know how great he'd be fantasy-wise, but it seems everybody who comes back scores great their fantasy first time back. So CMC back, that's exciting for people. Tampa Bay, Baker, love it. Jimmy, let's go. Let's talk Bears. Come on, let's talk Bears. This is a burn the ships game for the Bears. All right. If your Bears can't beat the Patriots, what will you do for the listeners of this very podcast next week?
Go on with my life and root for the Bears the next week after that and be very depressed about it. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Will you wear a pickle costume? Will you wear a pickle costume for the entirety of the show next week if the Bears can't beat the Patriots?
Where does one get a pickle costume on November 14th?
Listen,
I'm not really sure where that could happen. If I can find one, I will. You know what?
Listen, how about this? How about we get you one of those? We get you one of those Sam Adams hats. We get you one of those 3/4 Sam Adams hats, and you have to wear that right in all episode next week.
Listen,
yeah.
The Bears came out last week like they were a deflated team, and they were a deflated team. Caleb Williams is not getting any help up front. That offensive line is atrocious. We got another injury on that line. At one point, I was listening to a Bears podcast say, hey, our offensive line's got some depth in it. Really? Because Caleb Williams doesn't have any time to throw it. He's doing his best. We got Caleb Williams running so much that the starting wide receiver, our number one guy, said, well, play's over. I'm going to go take a seat on the bench. And that's how good Caleb Williams is to get out of there. He has not played very well. They have not led first in a game, I believe, is the stat. What? Like, how do you not do that? They never score in the first quarter. They didn't script plays. Now they're scripting plays. That's not working. And they came out and laid an egg against a beatable Arizona team. Ridiculous.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that Arizona's beatable. You're not giving enough credit to my guy Kyler. You're not giving enough credit to my guy Kyler.
They were who we thought they were. All right, Rod. They
we
were
go.
a solid team to come out and play, but they could be beaten. That's fine. But no. We're not going to do that.
Listen, my guy Eberflus is crazy like a fox. All right, the Bears have everybody
John
right.
Fox.
The Bears have everybody right where they want them. The Bears finish with all their division opponents. All right, like
that's how the Bears scares the hell out of me.
That's
They're
how they
play the Packers twice.
Listen,
do
you think the Lions or the Packers are going to come in here and scared of the Bears right now? They're not scared of the Bears right now. The Bears have everybody exactly where they want them. They have them exactly where they want them. I am still riding the Bears train. Actually, I'm driving the Bears train at this point. I'm not even a licensed train driver, but so many people have wanted to jump off the train. They've wanted to jump off the train that I've had to take over. Okay. I once upon a time drove a mail truck. So I said, fine, put me behind this locomotive. I watched the movie with Chris Pine and Denzel Washington. I believe I'm okay enough to handle this train. I'm driving it, and we are going to take it to the playoffs. All right, Jimmy, are you sure you want to get off the train? Because what I just described sounds like a pretty cool action movie. Are you sure you don't want to participate?
Rod, I've been riding the train for so many years, and you just got on the train. You could be the train driver, as you said, but do you know where you're going, Rod? I'll tell you where you're going to go after Foxborough. You're going to go to Green Bay.
Bam.
Then you're going to go to Minnesota.
Let's go.
Then you're going to go to Detroit.
Yes, we are.
Then you're going to go to, well, okay, you're playing Minnesota. Calm down, people. Then you're going to go to the 49ers. You're going to go to San Francisco. Then you get to go to Minnesota.
Yep.
Rod, you may not win another game. You got the Seahawks at home, and you got the Packers.
Who's afraid of Geno Smith? Tyreek Stevenson will be back at that point. Him and everybody will be fine. He'll understand the error of his ways. He's going to come back and have a huge interception.
We may not win another game.
17 to seal the division for the Bears. Let's go. Let's go. Williams, your thoughts on the coaching staff of the Bears, because I'm sure you have a few.
Yeah, we could do a segment every week and just be like, what are you doing, man? And be triggered towards Eberflus. The Bears, after giving up that ridiculous Hail Mary the previous week, gave up the longest run given up by a team and a half with 30 seconds left or less. The Bears gave up a 53-yard run for a rushing touchdown, taking the game from 14-9 to 21-9. The Bears
here's the genius of that play. Here's the genius of that play. If you're on the other sideline from the Bears, no, listen, Jim. If you're on the other sideline from the Bears now, you say to yourself, listen, I've seen people score from the Bears here on a pass, and I've seen them score on a run. Now the Bears are like, what are you going to bring at us? You can win with either one. Nope, it's an advantage. It's a schematic advantage the Bears have now because they've allowed each a run and a pass to score, Jim.
They can win with either one is the quote of the show. They can win with either one.
Yeah, the Bears look like they didn't even get off the bus last week. There's all kinds of rumors now that coming out that the team has quit on Eberflus. If they don't get this this Pats game, I mean he's got to be gone because the schedule is just ridiculous after that. Yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs, unfortunately.
This is just the beginning of the Eberflus redemption story, all right? You do not achieve great things in the NFL by cycling through coach after coach after coach, and you need only look one direction in the National Football League to find a shining beacon and an example of it, and that is to the east of Chicago, to a steel city in Pennsylvania, and to a man named Mike Tomlin, baby. He's rolling into town with his Steelers, and they are better than anybody thought. And all Tomlin has done is coach the Steelers for better part of 2.5 decades, 3.5 decades. I'm not even sure how long he's coached the Steelers at this point. It seems like he's coached the Steelers since I was in elementary school. I know that's not true because I saw Bill Cowher when I was in high school, but it feels that way because the Steelers know that you have to have consistency, and they are rolling into a team that has had no consistency, but they got the fiery young rookie. People are excited in DC. I vote this is the game of the week. Williams, what do you got for us? Steelers v. Redskins.
Yeah, this isn't technically a Tomlin rah-rah spot because the Steelers didn't lose a couple weeks ago, but I'm going with the Steelers +3 minus
Let's
115
go.
on MGM.
Let's
And listen to the
go.
reasons why. Tomlin has won 7 in a row off the bye. We always talk about how good Andy Reid is off the bye. Give some love to Mike Tomlin off the bye, 7 in a row. And get this, Tomlin is 25-6 versus rookie quarterbacks in his career, second best mark of any coach since they first tracked that stat back in 1950, minimum 15 starts. Washington has given up the third most yards before contact versus the rush. Steelers are second in rushing attempts. Steelers are also top 3 in scoring defense. Tomlin, career as a dog, 59-31 against the spread. That's 66%. He's undefeated as a dog this year. And Tomlin, as a dog versus a team with a better record like Washington has, he's 30-11 against the spread in his career, 73%. He lives for these moments, Jimmy. He gets out of bed to live because of spots like these, Rod. And real quick on the other side of the field, we know Arthur Smith loves to run heavy formations, loves to run 12 personnel with 2 tight ends out there on the field. Steelers run that at the second highest rate in the league. Why is that important? Washington D, bottom 3 in EPA per attempt allowed versus 12 personnel. And get this, if you don't think there's regression coming to this Washington team, listen to this stat. Washington is leading the league in scoring percentage per drive at 60%. That may not sound like much. Let me tell you why that is. The 07 Patriots, probably the best offense in the history of the NFL with Brady and Moss, scoring percentage that year was 49.8%. The Washington Commanders, through 8 weeks, 10%, over 10% better than the best offense ever. This team is still perfect on fourth down. It's week 10, and they are perfect on fourth down, 9 for 9.
Awesome.
There is massive regression coming here. They're 26 in DVO on defense. There's just massive regression coming. There has to be with this Washington team. Give me the Steelers +3.
You're so anti Cliff Kingsbury. Like you just carried this vendetta against Cliff for years. Like you even used to trash him at Texas Tech. I mean, you didn't understand why. I mean, you've always been against Cliff. Let the man live. All right. Right now, he is looking like he's a genius. I'm pretty sure he's the same football coach that got fired at numerous other places and just has Jaden Daniels landing in his lap. But congratulations for you, Cliff. Such is the life of an NFL offensive coordinator. And Jimmy, let me bring it back to the trade deadline that you gentlemen chortled at me at the beginning of this, thinking that I knew nothing about it. I believe that the Steelers actually made a move that will probably be a little impactful for them. They went out and got Mike Williams, who the Jets were basically just throwing away. And what can Mike Williams do? Catch moon balls outside the numbers. And that is exactly what Russell Wilson is going to continue to throw for this team. That's why he came in. He could throw the ball outside the numbers better than our guy, Justin Fields. So that's why Russell, hustle and bustle, man muscle, Wilson is in the game for the Steelers. I'm excited for this game. Let's go. I don't want regression for the Washington football team because I like when they are in a place where their fans are excited and not where they were for so long, Jimmy. But tell me you're fired up for this game too.
I am. Williams, do you think Lattimore's going to make any difference in that secondary?
Yeah, I think he will. I don't think he.
Turn that down a little bit there.
Yeah, you were excited about Lattimore. You were screaming at
it.
it.
You're loud. You were.
It's like a Pantera concert broke out here.
Sorry, is that better?
No.
A little bit. So we are live here on the Morgan Podcasting Network, and Josh Williams was moving his microphone around, and now it is very, very loud. I will talk about Marshawn Lattimore, why he turns that down a little bit. Lattimore was traded from the Saints to the Commanders, but also, Rod, you forgot, Preston Smith, the defensive and outside linebacker, was traded to the Steelers as well. So the Steelers upgraded on a couple things there.
Yeah, the Packers got rid of that guy. I was surprised. You don't usually see teams that are contenders get rid of dudes.
Yeah, I think this is the week. I think this is the week that Hustle, Russell, and Bustle gets a couple picks on him. Williams, what do you think?
Yes. How is that?
Well, there we go.
Is that better?
Just don't get too excited.
Yeah, I don't think Lattimore's going to play this week, but yeah, I think he will make a difference at some point.
Couple of years left on that contract. It'll be interesting to see what the Steelers do with that. They're a better run franchise than the Saints, who, from what I gathered in the talk of that trade, didn't make up a whole lot of spots in the draft and still have their cap messed up for next year and still paid most of Lattimore's salary for this year. So congratulations to one of the Saints. You you really had a bang up week this week. You made a trade that didn't seem to help you all that much, and you fired your coach. So I guess go get a muffaletta sandwich and have yourself a hurricane, and maybe things will be a little better if you live down there in New Orleans. You live in New Orleans at least. You know, I mean, Jazz Fest is around the corner. I don't even know,
Sounds like
actually. I just
fish.
know Jazz Fest happens down there at some time, but I have no idea when it actually is. But I do know that Jimmy and I are going to talk a little bit of basketball and a little bit of wrestling. But before we can talk basketball, we're going to say goodbye to our good friend Josh. And Josh, I believe you had some interesting DVOA numbers about contenders in each conference that you can leave us with here before we head off and talk some basketball.
Yes. Since 1979, there's been 25 teams that have started 8-0. Of those 25 teams, the Chiefs would rank 18th per DVOA metrics. Here's where things get interesting. A team with one loss this year, like the Detroit Lions, going back to 1979 through his data, the Lions would rank 5th out of all those teams, only behind the 07 Patriots, the 91 Redskins. That team was massively underrated with that O-line absolutely mauled teams, the 85 Bears, and the 07 Colts. Not the 06 Colts, but the defending champs 07 Colts. So this Detroit team through 8 games is ahead of the 96 Packers with Brett Favre. That team was a juggernaut that went on to win the Super Bowl. This is a great omen for the Lions. There was some more tidbits from the article about the DVOA stats. The Ravens are top 5 offense out of any team since 79. And you want a funny one? How about the Tennessee Titans special teams? Second worst ever. The Titans gave up a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown in that Lions game a few weeks ago. Second worst special teams unit we've ever seen. That is something.
In a world where like we have so much more coaching designated to special teams, we have like at least 1 or 2 players per team now that is kind of a special teams ace. So like even back in the day when like guys that literally were smoking at halftime and like were playing 3 different ways, this is the worst special teams we've ever seen. That's a congratulations, Tennessee. Congratulations. That's fabulous. I am happy that we circled back for a negative Tennessee stat, and for the Will Levis family, it didn't involve him. That's a victory this year out of Tennessee, where a joke was made at the Titans' expense, and it didn't involve Will Levis.
Yes.
But Jimmy, I need a ruling. Did I technically just make a Will Levis joke by saying there wasn't a Will Levis joke? I need a ruling on that.
Yeah, you're one of those people who's like, hey, we can talk about this, even though we just said it. So, yeah, good job.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, as Jimmy said. And unfortunately, Jimmy has to keep talking to one of those people about basketball. We're going to do that here in just a second.
Welcome to the Fast Break, the fastest 15 minutes in the NBA. I'm Jimmy, and Ramrod is here today. Williams is still in the video for you people who are watching, but you're not going to hear him because he doesn't know anything about basketball. But you know who does know something about basketball? The reigning, defending champion of the Wins League, who continues his streak, not just winning for the year, Rod. My consecutive week streak is still going. I don't even know how much it is since week 3 of last year. Not going to lie, I was sweating a little bit this week. Chris King, who is horrible at picking winning teams no matter what we're talking about, is in 3rd place. Chris King has 34 wins. He actually did a pretty good job getting those Nuggets, the T-Wolves, and the Kings. But then he also has the Jazz and the Milwaukee Bucks, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, Rod.
Ooh.
Rod, I can actually up the volume right now on all of us because Williams and his yelling is gone, which is nice.
That was wild. His mic just went crazy out of nowhere. It was like he was possessed by something.
Whenever you fix something, I tell you, it's ridiculous. But anyway, Rod, you picked the Suns first overall, and they've got 7 wins, and they are streaking right now. How happy are you about the Suns, and how worried are you that this is going to last?
Yeah, you have to worry when you got a guy like Kevin Durant who has, been not the picture of health over the last couple of years and has advanced up there in age, but he's looking really, really good right now. Budenholzer proving himself once again as a solid regular season coach who's going to know how to get a system installed and get teams playing around that system. They're getting up more 3-pointers. You're not hearing about what Bradley Beal's going to be because Budenholzer's like, I know what you are, and this is exactly what you're going to do. And other guys are going to play more important roles there. So I don't know that their defense is going to hold the way that it is right now. And I think that that's why they've started out this great, right? When we start getting into the dog days, I think their defense is going to slip a little bit. But I did say that I thought Phoenix had the requisite talent that if somehow they could keep it all on the floor, they're just as good as anybody out in the West. And they're proving it so far.
They are, Rod. You have 42 wins on the season. Speaking about talent, those Golden State Warriors beat your Celtics, but that helps you because they both have 7 wins on the season. 21 wins out of 3 teams in week 2 is not too bad, Rod.
That was a game. Did you catch much of that game on ESPN last night?
No, I didn't catch much of it at all. We had some other stuff going on, but
I'll tell you what. I'll look at it 2 different ways, right? I really enjoyed the Doris Burke, Jay Billis, Mike Breen triple threat in that game, right? I thought that Jay Billis and Doris played off of each other a little bit better than JJ and Doris did. So I think it's clear that Doris and JJ have known each other, or Doris and Jay have known each other for a lot longer than Doris and JJ did. So I thought that made the broadcast fun. And that was a playoff intensity type game. I mean, for being only less than 10 games into the season, for those teams to be going at each other the way they were, the chippiness that was in that arena because Steve Kerr was there and the Boston fans let it know that they were not happy with him still about the Olympics. And Steve Kerr was like, what are you guys talking about? I got gold medals for 2 other dudes on your team. We didn't lose to anybody. You know what I mean? So like the Olympics thing continues to be crazy, but that was a game. And if we are going to see Jimmy games like that coming up in the NBA Cup and at different points throughout the season, maybe some of the tweaks that we've talked about over these years have improved the television product and the regular season product a little bit, right? Like I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself here, but we're seeing a little bit better ball, I think.
Well, I want to talk about that here real quick because all these teams are going to be heavily featured in the Cup. Our team's going to go all out like they did last year because honestly, yes, the Pacers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but that kind of hurt them a little bit in that January, February timeframe, and Halliburton really wasn't the same since then. And the Lakers, you saw what happened to the Lakers over the next few months. I'm interested because I think the younger teams are going to go for it, but those older teams might step back a little bit.
I just think what you're going to see is the NBA tweaked it a little bit this year where there's more Vegas opportunities and the games are at a better time. So I think we're going to see a better atmosphere around the game. And I think that's going to get these guys fired up, right? Like they had no reason to care about it last year. And quite a few people did, right? Because the Bucks, they played some good games leading up to it. So I'm excited for it, right? Anything that makes me keep track of wins and losses, which is not something I typically do in the NBA until much later into the year. So I'm up for it, and I think teams are going to play for it. I think it's one of those things that that's going to get gradual, right? I don't think we're going to see it like be a one-shot deal last year and it's just going to die off. I think we're just going to see it gradually increase. Too much money behind it already.
A team that fell in our rankings and probably should have fallen even more, our Philadelphia 76ers, Rod, who they are in they have 3 huge stories. Really 4 huge stories. First of all, the one who had been playing, Maxey, is going to be out for a few weeks now. That's not good. Paul George made some news by being booed in LA and saying that that's ridiculous. Which kind of is because he would have signed if they would have given him the 4 years. I mean, it's not really, give me the money and I'll play. But then Joel Embiid, how's he doing this year? How are the stats doing for him?
Yeah, man. It's just like
weird.
We talk an awful lot on this podcast, and quite often it's Chris actually that talks about how like you have to be clear with the fans and your organization has to have a clear mission statement, right? And this is just a case of that, right? Philadelphia fans see their guy Joel Embiid playing in the Olympics, and then they see their guy sign a huge contract extension, and then they see their guy not playing in the preseason. They hear their guy say he's probably never going to play in back-to-backs again the rest of his career. Then he doesn't play to start the season up, and the Sixers just say, oh, no, nothing to see here. He's just ramping up. He didn't do the ramp up quite right coming out of the Olympics. It got him all messed up. Paris time. You guys understand. It'll be fine. And he's still not playing. So a scathing column gets written. All right. I will say it's a scathing column. Did it get a little bit too personal? Absolutely. Could the guy have said what he wanted to say without making it as personal as he did? Yes. And we know that because the paper went in and edited the column and it still basically gets across the same exact point that he was trying to get across. So that's bad. But you know what else is bad, Jim? When you confront somebody and you lay your hands on them. All right. We can all sit and talk at the bar how we want to about we're big and bad and we're tough. But when you're actually in a public setting and you lay your hands on somebody else, that's almost assault. Can't do it. Joel Embiid set down for 3 games. And magically, Jimmy, he was healthy because now he's serving the 3-game suspension. So, I mean, at least it did one thing for Sixers fans. Maybe they have an idea of when Joel's coming back.
So I don't understand how that works. So you haven't played all season. You get suspended 3 games, but then you can play now. But now you're suspended, so you can't play.
Right.
What
But
is
they
that?
had to designate him as healthy before he could even start serving the suspension because you can't be suspended when you're hurt.
Correct. But if he's going to be healthy for 3 games, and then they're going to put him back on the like, what's going to happen with that?
Well, they've already been fined once this year, right? So I think that we should be watching that game because if Joel doesn't come back after the 3-game suspension, I think the NBA is going to have some questions for old Daryl Morey and the folks down there at the Rocky statue. Is it by the Rocky statue or their headquarters by the Rocky statue?
I think the Rocky statue got moved, but whatever, it's fine. I'm not worried about it. So
I'm not up on my statue moving, Jim. I didn't realize that we were moving statues.
no, but we have a lot of cool statues like Dwayne Wade's statue. That was kind of neat. But anyway, Chris King, 34 wins. Rod, 42 wins. And Jimmy, 44 wins. I'm not going to lie. I did my wins last, and I was very, very nervous. But I have the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes, you
Who
do.
are 9-0 as of this recording. And my boy, Evan Mobley, thank goodness, he's finally kind of starting to become one of the premier big men in the league. I'm going to say it. He's getting there.
He's enjoying the Atkinson diet, you could say, Jimmy.
And with that, you've been listening to we talked about Coach Bud. Good coaches are so hard to find because when you have a lot of talent, the coach doesn't get the credit. But we noticed last year they had a good coach, all this talent, but couldn't put it together. This year they're putting together. We're 7 games in. I get it. Same thing with Atkinson. Great coach in Brooklyn. I was going to say New Jersey. I'm old. That's okay. Great coach in Brooklyn. Oh, we don't want him here. Why would you want a good coach there? Get him out. That went well. That went over well. But you have Jared Allen, who people thought was going to get traded. They're playing well together. Mitchell has finally figured out that he doesn't have to take every single shot, and he can kind of distribute the ball a little bit more. And when someone else is cooking, that's cool because he'll get his turn to cook as well.
He's also
We gotta talk
spending
about
less
your boy.
time on he's probably spending less time on Zillow looking at
New
other
York.
abodes that he could have in other locales, right? He's probably doing a little bit less of that because I hear that he's actually building a house there in Cleveland now, and he's got the extent. Listen, you hit everything I would want to point out. Atkinson was a good coach and basically got shoved to the side by Kyrie and Kevin Durant because that's how the NBA works. And when you're 2 guys like Kyrie and Kevin Durant who came to Brooklyn, they got to call the shot. So he got shoved out. He almost made the mistake of taking the Hornets job because he thought to himself, I better take a job. And then he thought better of it because they're like, wait a minute, this is the NBA. Guys get chewed up and spit out when they don't have any talent. The Hornets don't have any talent. Look at Steve Clifford. What happened to that guy trying to coach the Hornets twice?
Yep.
So he moved away from that, went back to Golden State. Bloom on the Rose was still there. Gets this Cleveland job. And you said it. If you're an NBA coach, you want to take a team that's got Mobley, Garland, Allen, right? These guys, Mitchell, right? These guys can all play. My guy, Dean Wade, not
Dean
just an
Wade.
accountant, as Zach Lowe calls, but an actual basketball player, right? You got Karis LeVert still hanging around doing some
Yeah.
things there in
He's
Cleveland,
a
you know?
basketball
So
player in 2024, 2025. Yeah.
I think that what you see with the Cavs, what you see with the Warriors, who you made mention of, how they have a great record going on. We know the Celtics have a great record, is in Oklahoma City, Jim. I think the new secret to the NBA is you need 7, 8, 9 guys that are going to rotate and that you feel confident in and that can pass and that can shoot, right? If you come to the court with that many guys a night, you're going to be tough for teams to beat. And the teams at the top of the league right now all seem to have that. And then, like you said, if you have that much talent, you better have a coach that knows how to distribute it.
And we talk about OKC. You know, you talk about Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Hartenstein, Caruso, SGA, the other Jalen Williams, Lou Dort. Yeah, you do have that depth, and that is going to get you through a season because you know there's going to be some injuries. Williams has already been hurt a little bit this season, but they are 7-1. I believe they're 7-1 now. They were undefeated until yesterday.
They got
And
Jokic. They got literally Jokic. He had 20 some points,
only
20
player on
rebounds.
the team. It was Jokic against 5, and he still won, which is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
can that guy be any better? Really, Rod? Really?
Listen, you know I come down on him sometimes, but like
All the
he's
time.
just he's really shown out this year. He's really shown out. He's like, all right, fine. None of you SOBs are gonna do anything that's gonna help me along. So I'm just gonna go out and do all of it, and I'm gonna do it incredibly efficiently and still look like I'm not breaking a sweat. It's amazing.
You're not going to play. You're not going to play. I'll take your points. It's fine. We'll go for it. So I have 44 wins there. It's been a fun season so far. A lot of fouls though. Still, we talked about it last year. Those whistles are so up, and I don't understand why it's not as fun. These games are taking longer. You're you're breaking up the fun of basketball. I really did like where it was. There's got to be a point where you stop that because you want people getting hurt, but you don't want all these 30, 40, all these fouls, Rod.
Can I give you our guy in honor of our guy Chris, who it looks like unfortunately may not be able to join us. Maybe he'll make it in time for the wrestling show, which we're going to get to here in a couple of minutes. But
Sure.
if he were here, he'd be dropping a conspiracy take on us right now that all that was happening last year was the NBA was prepping for its big television deal, right? Is that the NBA just wanted to be able to go to these TV partners and say,
Yeah.
hey, look at these games, look at this, look at the competitiveness. Look at this. This is the NBA basketball we all know and love and people want to see. It's more aesthetically pleasing. And then the NBA went right back to, no. We need to fill the stats up. These guys all want to make their money. You know, they've got to justify this. They've got to justify that. So let's go back to calling some fouls and let's make sure the guys that are supposed to have 27 and above points have 27 and above points. And let's get things back to normal in the NBA. That's what our guy Chris would say. What I would say is we just have some refs trying to give the geometry of the lane and things that they will allow, right, Jimmy? I think hopefully we'll see a backing off of a little bit because players will adjust to what they've seen in the beginning of the season. I think this is just the rocky part you always see at the beginning of the season. I hope. Fingers crossed.
Speaking of rocky parts, Rod, it is now time for the Rod Nation of the week.
Well, my Rod Nation of the week has to go to the Milwaukee Bucks. And my Rod Nation is just kind of like, I just feel sad. I just feel sad for Doc Rivers. Like you just watch these games and there's just a shot over to Doc and he's standing there on the sidelines and like you just imagine Doc saying, Giannis told me it wasn't going to be like this. I really love the guys and I just had to get back out here on the sidelines and we're going to turn it around. Like it's not working out in Milwaukee whatsoever. Turns out Portland, who basically built shrines for Dame Lillard, maybe knew something when they were ready to ship him out of town because he has not looked very good without a Trailblazers uniform on. Giannis has seemed a little bit more like an American basketball player the last couple of off seasons, if you know what I'm meaning by that. He seemed a little bit more agitating for things to happen. He seemed a little bit more like, well, if things don't go my way, I can always go somewhere else. And so if I were Milwaukee, I might start calling up some teams and saying, hey, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, Brooke Lopez, any of these guys mean anything to you? You guys want to offer us up anything for these guys? Because I think you just need to shuffle talent out, right? Like I see you shaking your head, Jim. None of those guys are going to get you back much, but they're not giving you much right now either. So if you can find somebody that'll give you something for them, shuffle some talent in there and force Doc to try to play with a different hand because it ain't working right now.
Well, they took Gary Trent Jr. out of the starting lineup, so that should do some things. Get him off the bench. They need to get youth. They have not drafted well either. They haven't had, and they're not going to have.
Turns out giving up all those draft picks for Dame Lillard and Drew Holiday might have hurt him.
And Jay Crowder, if you'll remember, I believe they gave up
5 second-round picks for a guy that barely played for him.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. I just don't see it coming out, and we're not going to talk about trades because it's the second week of the season. But again, New York's not there anymore. And that's kind of a big one. Miami, you're not going to trade him for anything from Miami. So, what do you do there? And the Dame Lillard thing I thought was I think we talked about it back when it was made. This was easy. He was left for dead 3 years ago or 4 years ago. 3 years ago, had a terrific season in Portland, right? Last year, wasn't ready for the season apparently because he was afraid he was going to get hurt if he worked out too much, Rod. That's not good.
Right? You don't
And
love
then,
that.
And then this year, so it's tough. And I
You know, he's
think
living
it's
in a
gonna be long
hotel, right?
season.
We're fed that whole thing too, right? He's living in a hotel. He misses his family, right? He's got stuff going on. Okay, fine.
Well, as kids.
We're fine with all of that.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen it bounce back this year on the court, right? I think we had one game. Where Dame scored over 30 points. He had 10 3-pointers. He looked like the Dame we believe, right? But you and I love Bill Simmons. We talk about him
Yeah.
quite an awful lot on this podcast.
Sure.
Shout out to the Podfather himself. But he calls Dame a once a week guy. And it seems like Dame might be a once every other week guy, which is not really what you want out of a dude that you're going to be paying $52 or $56 million to here really, really soon. So that's it's just troubling up in Milwaukee. Because let's remember, Jim, they were traditionally a small market team in you and I's lifetime, and they paid some of the biggest luxury tax bills in the NBA right now, and they're paying it for not much.
Speaking of Milwaukee, I wonder if we're going to hear it on this next segment, the Kings Hardwood Hierarchy. We're all singing along, aren't we? The King has to be the Cavs. I mean, it's got to be, Rod.
It's most undoubtedly. You could easily said Oklahoma City, but Oklahoma City got Jokic, as we talked earlier about, so it's got to be those Cavs. They're the only undefeated team left.
So we took Oklahoma City, put them down to the Prince with that one, but I think the Queen's going to have to be the Suns and how they're playing right now. I know the Celtics aren't in this yet. Are we taking them for granted a little bit? Yeah, I think we are. No question.
That's okay.
But
that's
right
where the Celtics
now,
want to be. I like the chip on
Yeah.
their shoulder.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like about Durant, we're not breaking out. We're not going to the restaurant yet, right? We're not breaking out the table yet. That's weeks from now. But if we were, the Slim Reaper out there in Phoenix might be the guy sitting at the head of the table. So that's another reason why I think the Suns might deserve to be on this hierarchy.
Agreed. I think he and Tatum are going to go one-on-one for quite some time. And then, of course, we just talked about our jester. It's got to be the Bucks. Jazz cannot be the jester. I think Jazz actually are in line for the King coming up because they know what they're doing. They're doing it right. They want to raise that flag in June and just change their franchise around. So I think that's what we're doing there.
I will once again say the people of Utah are extremely excited for Cooper Flag.
And with that, you've been listening to the Fast Break on the More You Know's podcasting network. We're going to go to wrestling in a second, but first, Chris King telling us goodbye, Internet.
Goodbye, Internet. Chris doesn't sound like that. I don't know why I made him sound like that.
I don't know either, but that's okay. Welcome to the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the More You Know's podcasting network. The Ring with Jimmy and Rod. Chris is doing some emergency maintenance right now, and seriously, all kidding aside, we do joke about him, but Chris does a lot of great things, and we appreciate him. Never tell him I said that.
That's right.
Never, Rod.
He's not going to listen to this. Jimmy, this is old school. This is like, it's been a while. It's been a while since it was just you and I chopping up wrestling.
It's been fun. You know what? They did it to us again, Rod.
Oh.
They did it. They sucked us in with a couple of interesting things at a Crown Jewel, and they did it to us again. Crown Jewel was worthless once again. Not really much happened. It was fine.
I can't. We didn't even get a Goldberg. You know what I mean? Like and then the other problem I had with the entire Saudi Arabian weekend was the taped Raw. Monday's Raw just felt like a taped Raw. It just really felt like a taped Raw. You know, like there was just so much stuff out there about Raw spoilers ahead. The Masked Man show even had Raw spoilers before Raw. You know what I mean? Like in today's day and age, Jim, I don't know how the WWE is going to continue to get away with taped shows. You know what I mean? Like your battle for the troops or whatever. You know what I mean? Like your speed. You want to do that stuff.
Be live, I think now, so that's good.
Yeah. But the tape shows are just no good. And I just like, as crazy as those Saudi Arabian fans go, right? And I still love your foreign soil premium live events because those fans go crazy. We've scolded American fans before for taking it for granted, knowing that they have another chance in a couple of months to get back out there and cheer on their guys. But in the foreign soil, they always go crazy. But the matches were just, come on. I don't care that Cody Rhodes beat Gunther, other than Gunther doesn't lose very often. So I guess there's that, but I don't care that Cody Rhodes won that belt. I don't think it was a great choice to have Liv win that belt. And I didn't like much of the premium live event at all, Jimmy.
And those belts are like legit, not fake anything. I think those belts are more money. than we
Never
could
leaving
possibly
Saudi
imagine.
Arabia. That's the
Oh
other thing.
no, and that's funny too because they are going to be kept in the WWE museum there, mostly because they're probably worth more than the WWE is right now, and that's a lot of money. Um, I think that. How about that Kevin Owens Randy Orton 60-minute brawl there that we had?
Yeah, I was interested. I thought maybe we were going to live in a world where the match never got started officially, right? Like I kind of thought we might see that because then I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." Right? And I think we got almost to where we were saying we needed to get with Kevin Owens, but I just ultimately, Jim, I don't think we pulled off enough of it, right? Like people were excited as hell to see him when he came down to the ring even on foreign soil.
Yeah, it was a shame there, but we did.
Do you think they're going to be able to pull this off? Honestly, you know more about wrestling than me. Do you think they're going to be able to pull this off where people are legit going to be angry at Kevin Owens now? Because I don't think they're going to.
He's a good heel. He will get there eventually where people will hate him. Yes, he will do it, and it's on him. He
But
is
the
that good, Rod.
monotone KO, like talking at us from his car at his hotel room, like, do you think that's working, or do you think we need to change up the angle?
He's going to continue to morph this into something that works. He'll find it. I have all the utmost confidence in KO. Listen, he's my boy.
All right, your fantasy football team name is Fight Owens Fight, so you might be
Damn right.
a little unbiased when it comes to this particular. But
I will
I'll
go put
trust
my-
you.
will
I
put
ask
my
our listeners to
hoodie-
trust in you.
I don't buy too many Funko Pops. Listen,
There we
it's my
go.
boy. All right. Am
I
overdoing-
tell the
yes, is
listeners
it
always
weird?
they should
Yes.
trust in you. If I tell them to trust in you, I must trust in you. So I'll believe you. But I'm skeptical right now.
But we did have something cool kind of happen. Roman Reigns got beat. Sami Zayn talking to Solo Sikoa. And then all of a sudden, Sami Zayn comes back to help the bloodline against the new bloodline, but then kicks Roman in the face. Rod, was that on purpose?
Well, if you're Jimmy Uso, it absolutely 100% was on purpose.
Who's an idiot and doesn't
right.
see things. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
If you're you and me, we absolutely know it was not on purpose because we love Sami Zayn. And if you're Jey Uso, you have trouble seeing things through the yeet glasses, so you need some time to have everybody come together and talk about it like a family on SmackDown. So that's apparently where we're at.
Well, what's gonna be very difficult to understand is Roman Reigns is actually gonna punch Sami Zayn, Superman punch Sami Zayn this week accidentally, and we're not gonna know if that was on purpose, Rod. You know, Sammy's going to be holding, or someone's going to be coming after somebody else. Roman's going to go for it. They're going to duck. Sammy's going to go down. I don't know what can happen, Rod.
He definitely is. Let me ask you this. Here's the more interesting question, I think, when it comes to this. Who's getting a bigger pop right now? Jey Uso or Roman Reigns?
Oh, it's Jey Uso. Jey Uso, I was going to actually talk to Chris about doing our hot list because we need to our heat list. We need to do that again coming up very soon here. We like to kind of do it at the end of the year. He's going to be very high. I mean, not just the Saudi Arabian crowd, but every single crowd. He has stepped up so much. It's not about only your gimmick, but it's how you do the gimmick and how you can relate to fans. And Rod, he's done great. I think he's getting better than Roman right now.
Listen, you know what else it is? This is something else I've talked about. With me, it's the simple things, right? And I talked about how what was awesome with The Rock, right? The Rock's music was always boom. You were all automatically hit with "Do you smell?" or "If you smell, you knew," right? Stone Cold. What were you hit with Stone Cold? The glass would break, right? And then I believe you have the same thing with Jay's music, right? The Uso yell and scream, and then the music starts. I mean, come on. You've got to have a pop, boom, bang entrance music, right? Romans is cool. I get that you look so badass when you're walking slowly to the ring and taking 6.5 minutes, right? But that just doesn't pop the same way as other people's music does, right? It doesn't pop the way John Cena's music does, right? Like you need to have that bang right at the beginning of your thing. And I think that really adds. And for Jey Uso, it's huge. When that Uso hits, and the crowd starts screaming and the yeets start going off and everybody's moving their hands up and down and Jey Uso's walking through the crowd. It's magical, man. It's magical. Even my guy Seth couldn't quite pull off something like that.
And will Jey Uso be the one to bring all of the original bloodline back together? Will he be the one when not this week, but when next week, when Sami and Roman are going back and forth, Jimmy doesn't know really what's going on because he can't see. Does Jay say, we aren't a family. We need one more person? Does Paul Heyman come back in 2 weeks and bring everybody back together? And does Paul Heyman lead the bloodline into War Games?
What if Paul Heyman is in War Games? What if we get Paul Heyman in a singlet and we get him in War Games? How about that? How about that? That's what he's been doing. He's been training. He's been getting in bumps.
Yes, he has. He has been training to come back. Rod, you've thrown it. Are you sure you're not Chris King right now? Are you just?
I got to bring our guy's energy a little bit. You know, I mean, he hasn't been able to join us. We got to bring his energy a little bit. That'd be great. Listen, I want to see Paul Heyman back. You hope that he's going to come back soon. War Games would be a big pay-per-view to bring him back for. Start ramping up towards Royal Rumble and WrestleMania again. I love all of that. I still have the same question that I think Chris would also bring up here, right? And we could see the towel up here behind me, right?
Yep.
John Cena. He's going to have to be involved somehow. And we also brought The Rock back, right? The Rock came back, in one of our premium live events, so I just still wonder if either one of those two are going to somehow be involved in this storyline as well. Or are we really going to send John Cena out with just an upper mid-card level storyline, Jim? Is that where we're headed?
He's gonna wrestle for the championship at one point. I think he and Roman Reigns would be an interesting matchup there. We also have to remember that Raw goes to Netflix starting in January, and there are rumors that Netflix either wants Roman or Cody on Raw for the majority of the time. USA is like, oh, we don't care, we'll take whatever. But
you're saying Netflix gets to swing a little more weight around at the WWE? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. Right now, they do. They're paying for a little bit more money there. Speaking of swinging some weight around, we have a new number one contender for the world title, and that is our boy Damian Priest. This feels like a stepping stone match. I don't think anyone really thinks Priest is going to win this. Right, Rod?
No, definitely not. I didn't like the move of having Priest win it. I understood it.
Shocking.
Yeah. You're not really ready to tell a storyline with other people in that match. And, of course I wanted Seth to win, but that's all right. We can do other things with Seth. He doesn't have to immediately go back to the belt, but I would have liked to have seen one of the other two in that match win it, quite frankly, but we're not ready to tell the story with them. So yeah, let Priest go up there. We can tell a little story with him. He'll get beat and things will be fine.
Be interesting to see where he goes after this as well, because he's really on his own now with Rhea out. Is he that person that they're going to go in the mid-card Intercontinental Championship with, maybe a Braun Breaker or something like that?
I'd like that. That'd be cool. See Punishment Martinez taking on old Braun there, because Priest can wrestle. So and Braun is an athletic specimen, so that might be a fun match. I could dig that. But then you're right though. That's a step back, right? Priest was just the heavyweight champ, and now he's back to doing IC. But hey, Gunther lived there for a long time. Sami Zayn, popped himself there for a little bit. So there's worse things to be than Intercontinental Champion.
No question. Hey, your boy Chad Gable got some ring time. Not too bad against Dragon Lee. Didn't win, but still got some ring time. Are you excited about that?
Not nearly as excited as I was to see my guys Pretty Deadly in the ring. Again, there's some people who could really use a victory. But Jimmy, speaking of Chad Gable, how about our guy Miz getting stole by the Wyatt Six? And then Karrion Kross, we kind of maybe finally have something for two guys that we've always sort of been intrigued by on this podcast, The Miz and Karrion Kross, and they're involved with the Wyatt Six, which most of us hate.
Why not do something completely different with Miz? Why not? He's been the same character his entire career. Now he's in a suit instead of like those baggy pants and whatever, and hootie hoo, if you will, if we remember that. I don't know if you remember that, Rod, but
oh yeah,
there was definitely
I was kept up with my guy Miz even when I wasn't fully watching.
I like it. Do something completely different. You know what? Screw it. Grow his hair out, grow a beard. Let's go. Why the heck not? Make him part of the Wyatt Six.
So you think that is definitely where we're headed, right? Anybody that gets kidnapped like that then ends up in their depths.
I think so. I think it's either that or with Cross. I mean, it could be either one.
That's what I think. I think the Miz is going to somehow incorporate a dastardly slither out, right? Like somehow Karrion Kross is going to all of a sudden get put in at the last second in place of Miz, and then we're going to get the birth of Karrion Kross with those guys because that makes more sense. And nobody cares about AOP or Paul Ellering. I mean, nobody cares about either of those dudes. So all three of them can just go away, and Scarlett can just run around with the Wyatt Six, make her look like Morticia Adams. We could go for that.
Oh, interesting. Yes, why not? Io Sky is your number one contender for the women's championship. Of course, Io Sky's unbelievably fantastic. You're going to get a good match out of whoever she wrestles for that belt. I think that's good. Other than that, Raw was
made a mention though. Becky Lynch got name checked on television, so you guys might be onto something there, saying that she is the White Knight who might come in to save the women's division. I want it to be my girl Charlotte Flair, but Becky got name checked, so I think that's interesting. We should make note of that.
This Friday's SmackDown is going to be extremely interesting to see what happens with the main event segment. Of course, Cody Rhodes will be there, Roman Reigns will be there, everyone will be there. Who comes out for Cody? What are we doing with Cody now?
Don't you think we're still doing something with KO and Randy, right? Like, don't you think we're still probably involved in that somehow? Don't you think that we're still going to bring him into tentacles of that? I would think.
Do we set up a three-way at Survivor Series?
Does Goldberg come back and wrestle Cody Rhodes?
You got to wrestle somebody. I would assume it would be Gunther, but it could be.
John Cena. Does John Cena just show up and wrestle Cody Rhodes? Because they can do the whole thing that they love to do with Cody, where those guys just, mutual admiration off and shake each other's hand in the ring and say, you deserve a shot. No, you deserve a shot. They can do that whole thing.
Yeah, it's too early for that, though. I really think he's not going to start until January. So I think that'll happen.
Oh, that's right. You keep talking about him filming the Peacemaker. Nobody cares about that Peacemaker show. Just leave that, John. All right, I know there's insurance and a lot of people that get paid to be on that show, but they don't matter as much as the WWE universe. Come on home, John.
Rod, we are live every Thursday night, as long as we can, with NBA, NFL, and the WWE. We are the Morgan You Know Podcasting Network. Please, everyone, if you get a chance, like us on Twitch, like us on what do we have? We have Instagram, we have Twitter, X, if you will, TikTok, which our TikTok is going real solid right now. We appreciate everybody for that. The kids really hate us, actually, which is kind of fun. I really like that as well. So with that, you've been listening to the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the Morgan You Know's Podcasting Network. In the Ring with Jimmy and Rod.
Chris, we missed you. Get back here next week, buddy. And other than that, like Jim said, like, follow, subscribe, and shout out to Corey Nance, #1 fan.
I didn't realize we were